will not be able to fix this problem. All this will work. All this will do is basically yield super profits for the super wealthy once again. Let's keep looking at the glorious stock market crash, okay? Stocks are plummeting. Are you ready for the new world order?
Now we begin with the breaking news from Wall Street. Trading has been underway now for just about 30 minutes, and nervous investors, very nervous investors, are weighing in on President Trump's historic new global tariffs. The early assessment, deep concerns. Almost all goods entering the United States will face a new tax of at least 10%, and that means inflation-weary Americans will see even higher prices on virtually everything. And that adds to the deepening concerns among economists that the U.S. and indeed much of the world may be on a collision course with a recession. Let's begin this hour with CNN business and politics correspondent Vanessa Yurkevich. She's in New York watching all of this unfold. So Vanessa, where do the markets stand right now?
Wolf, markets are tumbling as investors are really digesting worse than expected tariffs. You have the Dow, the NASDAQ, and the S&P all down below, as you can see there, 3%. Retail stocks in particular really selling off. Nike, Adidas, Lululemon, these are companies that source a lot of their goods from abroad, countries that are now under higher tariffs. And just look at the countries that were hit in yesterday's announcement. You have the European Union, 20% tariff. You have Japan, 24%, China, 34%, and Vietnam, 46%. Key trading partners to the U.S. Investors are worried what this means for businesses, and then, of course, those businesses' profits. But let's just reset. What do we know right now? We know that there are auto tariffs in effect right now. But coming on Saturday is that 10% universal tariff on Wednesday, higher tariffs on about 60 countries, tariffs on auto parts, foreign auto parts on May 3rd, and then maybe coming additional tariffs on lumber, semiconductors, and I'll add copper there as well. And as you mentioned, Wolf, there is talk of what this could mean for a recession. I just spoke to an analyst who says that the longer that these tariffs stay in place, the more likely that there will be a recession. We also heard from Mark Zandi from Moody's Analytics, who said if they follow through, if these tariffs go into effect, I'd buckle up and brace for impact. A recession seems more likely than not. Wolf?
All right, Vanessa Yurkevich in New York for us. Thank you very much, Pamela.
Well, Wolf, the White House and Republican lawmakers concede that the ripple effect of the tariffs will cause some pain to Americans. But the White House says it's the initial cost to revive manufacturing jobs in the U.S.
Too much winning. You'll say, Mr. President, we've done enough winning. Please, we no longer want to win. We no longer want to win again. Too much winning. I'll say, no, you'll keep winning.
Here's what the vice president said this morning.
For 40 years, we've had an economy that rewards people who ship American jobs overseas and raises taxes on American workers, and we're flipping that on its head. We're going to cut taxes for American workers and for American companies that build here. We're going to make it harder to ship American jobs overseas. It's a total shift in the way that we've done economic policy in the United States of America, but it was necessary.
Hey, Americans, I know that you've seen your 401ks diminish by like 30%, but have you said thank you yet? Have you said thank you recently? Have you said thank you, Mr. President? Because guess what? When your 401k goes away, that'll only cause you to grind harder. I'm doing this for you. I'm doing this for you. Have some respect. Yeah. Have you said thank you once? I don't hear it.
All right, let's go live now to CNN White House reporter Elena Trina. Elena, what else are you hearing from the administration this morning?
Well, Pamela, it's clear that the White House has been very intentional in its messaging. You know, despite some of the president's defenders, Republicans on Capitol Hill, others who have argued that the president is a pragmatist at heart, that perhaps he would pull back on some of these tariffs, it's clear they were wrong. The president was serious about this. And as Vance just laid out, and as we've heard from other top advisors this morning, he is committed to these tariffs really because he fundamentally believes the United States is getting taken advantage of, and he wants to really break the trading system that has been built over the last 70 or 80 years now and see this realignment. Now, we heard from Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt this morning. She was speaking with CNN. She said that, this isn't going to be a negotiation. This is a national emergency. Listen to how she put it.
The president is firm in his approach, and the president is.
Yeah, JD Vance also revealed the second incredibly nefarious side of this, which is that this is like the other purpose for this. I've mentioned this a couple times in the build up to the tariffs, where, when Trump says something and he's put his mind to it, like he will do it. And when there's too much backlash, he'll maybe claw it back a little bit and say, I fixed it, even after he broke it, right? But in the lead up to it, I kept repeating, there's a couple things that he's going to do here, which is, I think he's trying to abolish income tax, which is insane. It is one of the only progressive taxation methods that the government has, even though it still tremendously benefits capital owners, because capital owners get taxed at a much lower rate because they get taxed on capital gains rather than straight income, right? They get taxed on capital gains rather than straight income. So this, even though there needs to be more work and there needs to be an increase in the top marginal tax rate and also additional taxes on wealth as well, okay, we're moving in the direction of abolishing that and saying, see, we're filling our coffers with tariffs instead of income tax. It's a long-standing Republican project. But of course, if Trump were to do it in the way that Republicans were suggesting initially, he would just say, we're doing a mass sales tax, which will harm the working poor overwhelmingly because it's a regressive tax, instead of having income taxes. But this is a way to package that as though he's boosting American domestic manufacturing, when in fact, it's just a regressive tax that will be slapped up on top of the working class, because the tariffs, the entry fee that corporations pay, will be carried on to the consumer in the form of price increases, leading to hyperinflation. And in the process, then they'll shut off income tax, which is a progressive mode of taxation. It's fantastic. Do you think that this is just a stupid person's way to de facto increase taxes without saying they are and selling it as a nationalist project? It's not even a way of increasing taxes across the board. It's a way of increasing taxes on the working poor while cutting taxes even further for the wealthy. It is another wealth transfer. That is what is going on here. That is what's so nefarious about this agenda, because I don't believe that Donald Trump is pro-labor, pro-working class at all. I'm sorry. He has done nothing that shows me that he is genuine about his interest in boosting domestic manufacturing. I think he's simply using this tariffs structure to, one, undermine the World Trade Organization because of the favored nations benefits that China gets. And he wants to decouple trade from China. He wants to claw back as much trade from China as possible and other developing nations as possible, because the Trump administration is, I think, more honest about the death of American empire than neoliberals are. They realize that America is dying, China is dominating, and they want to fight back to the best of their ability in the interim. But I still think it's going to fail, because in order for this to be the American prosperity decade, you would need to ironically do China shit here in America, something that I've been advocating for quite a while at this point. That's what's going on. Donald Trump and his admin understand that China is dominating. And they want to, because they don't like that, and because they're terrified of the prospect of no longer being the hegemonic superpower, they want to claw back as much manufacturing as possible. But because they are allergic to nationalization and initiatives that the government controls and government-funded initiatives that are in the public sector, they will not be able to fix this problem. And all this will work. All this will do is basically yield super profits for the super wealthy once again. That's my assessment here. And that's where I think the UAW's analysis, and even, and I'm afraid to say this, like Sean Fain's assessment here falls short of what is actually taking place.
Is ensuring economic stability here in the United States of America. This is a common sense policy. And if these countries wanted to negotiate, if these countries wanted to do what's right, they've had 70 years to do it.
I think, Pamela, the end of her answer there, saying they had 70 years to negotiate, is really key here, because that's the question now. Where do we go from here? We're going to see, as Vanessa just laid out.
Yeah, like Jonah Furman, obviously doing comms for UAW, friend of the show, Jonah. He's great. Says GM moves to increase production of light duty trucks. GM production increases out of its Fort Wayne plant, according to Reuters. Jonah says, I guess strategic tariffs can work. I wonder if people smirking about other blue collar layoffs will acknowledge and celebrate this, or just keep defending a broken trade status quo. These guys understandably despise free trade, the free trade agenda and the free trade reign. And Trump is breaking that, but I don't think he's breaking that at the behest of labor. I think he's breaking that in a really stupid way, in a way that Americans would not see the benefit from, in a way where I generally agree, but I also think that this might also be a pretext for seizing emergency powers. He's actively trying to throw the country into anarchy in order to deploy military domestically. I hope I'm wrong. I don't know about that. Always seems like a catch-22 since we're also moving jobs back to the imperial core. Happy to see more domestic union jobs, but do you think it strengthens the labor movement internationally? I think it raises the share of profits going to labor when multinational corporations have to pay $37 an hour instead of $3 an hour. I just don't think it's going to happen. I think this is going to lead to the American working class becoming even more desperate. And instead of wages increasing, the more desperate domestic labor force will work not for $37 an hour, but instead for $25 an hour. That is what I fear. That is what I worry. I think this is a very optimistic assessment. And it is virtually impossible for me to feel optimistic about a Trump future. That's it. That's what I think.
All of these different countries likely respond and in kind to these tariffs and retaliate. That could further escalate this trade war now. And so that's really the key question. One thing as well, just as we watch the stock market, is that the president has been far less reactionary to how the stock market is in this term, in his second administration, than in his first. We have been told repeatedly now not to see him react to the stock market directly because of this. Instead, he has said repeatedly now that he believes there will be some short-term pain. So I'd keep that in mind as well as we cover this. Pamela?
All right, Elena Train, thank you so much. Wolf?
All right, Pamela, as we mentioned, analysts now say that President Trump's tariffs will likely plunge the global economy into recession this year. Some countries say they're hoping they can negotiate with the U.S., while others have vowed swift retaliation. Listen.
We had
been requesting the U.S. government to review its unilateral tariff measures at various levels, and we are extremely disappointed and regret that such measures have been implemented nonetheless.
Our intention remains to secure a deal, but nothing is off the table.
We will continue to make the strongest case for these unjustified tariffs to be removed from our exporters.
We are going to fight these tariffs with countermeasures. We are going to protect our workers.
The entire global economy will suffer from these ill-considered decisions.
Stock markets across Asia have already tumbled after President Trump's announcement. Now China has vowed to counter what it calls bullying tariffs by the United States. I'm going to go live to Beijing. CNN's Mark Stewart is on the scene for us. Mark, what kind of retaliation potentially could we see from China?
Right. What do you mean? They're going to do retaliatory tariffs, and your tweet about this? Oh, yeah. China President Xi will meet with European leaders, including France President, Spain Prime Minister, and EU President in Vietnam in the coming weeks amid rising global trade tensions over U.S. tariffs. Europe seeking greater intimacy with China and Southeast Asia to offset U.S. reliance. Gift wrapping a Chinese century of prosperity, accelerating the inevitable demise of American empire, and gift wrapping the Chinese century of prosperity. My biggest mistake was not learning Mandarin. My biggest mistake was not shipping my ass out to China to be doing white monkey jobs out there for decades and setting myself up. It's not too late. I was early to the market with China glaze. Many people yelled at me. Many people freaked out over it. And now many of you will learn this hard lesson. Yeah, this is from the first Trump term. Xi and Trump have afternoon tea at Forbidden City, where Donald Trump shows Xi Jinping his granddaughter speaking Mandarin.
Wearing a Chinese lady. All over the world. Okay, so
She's living my dream. He's living my dream. I wanna sit across the table from Xi Jinping and tell him Ti Shang Tai Yang Hong Ya Hong Dong Dong Xi Shong De Tai Yang Xi Ma So Dong Da Ling Da Woman De Xi Feng Ren Men Fan Shen Dan Xiang Jiao Zhou Zhu Ren Ya Xi Yo Ya Xi Yo Ren Men Fan Shen Dan Xiang Zhou Zhou Zhu Ren. That's my dream. That is my dream. That is my destiny. Okay.
It's very good, right? It's very smart.
She is her grandfather's little angel. She's also a messenger of U.S. China relations.